TAD Media Special Report in conversation with Dr. Beck Taylor. I'm your host, Jennifer Rash, and we are chatting about the first year of Dr. Taylor's presidency at Samford University, the 19th president, that is, at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. Dr. Taylor, thanks for taking some time for us.
Thank you, Jennifer. Always good to be with you.
All right, so we are right on it. We are right on the wrapping up of the first year. Tell us what it's like. What do you know right now that you didn't know last year at this time?
That Samford is even better than I thought. We have had such a great first year, Jennifer. It's gone by really fast. I think partly because my wife Julie, and I have tried to fit 2 or 3 years into this first year. But I'm not kidding when I say every morning we wake up more excited than we've ever been about the future of Samford. The more we learn about this place, the more we get to know the people of Samford, from our faculty, staff, students, but to our alumni and friends throughout the community, the more excited we are about Samford's future. And I think that that's really been the big learning this year, is that even though things are going tremendously well on almost every account, almost every measure at Samford, we still have so much opportunity, and there's so much more for the university to do.
Well, you definitely came right out of the gate. You did not waste 1 second. You were all over social media. You were all over the state, all over the nation. Why the energy? Why that level of just going after every part and piece that you could this first year? What was behind that?
Partly, I think those who know me best will say that that's pretty reflective of my personality. I wake up in the morning ready to go, and really probably only have one speed, which most of the time is a good thing. But sometimes I need to learn how to gear it back a little bit. But there was a lot to accomplish this year. In addition to learning about Samford and going to school, in effect, on the university, learning about all of its schools and programs, people. Of course, I wanted to meet so many of Samford's stakeholders, alumni, our friends throughout our region and community, not least of which are our Alabama Baptist partners. And so my travels took me from everywhere from California to New York City and beyond. And just really wanted to spend the year making relationships, listening to people's Samford stories, listening to how people articulated their own excitement about the university, and then beginning to articulate my own vision and my own understanding of the future of this place. And so there was so much to do. We couldn't help but hit every day running, and it was really a lot of fun, even though we were always hard at work and certainly slept well at night. It didn't lack for joy and happiness. We really had a great year.
And Julie's been just as involved as you have. Can you just share a little bit about what all she's been?
Sure, she has been. Thank you for asking about that. In addition to her responsibilities and duties as my partner, as First Lady of the university, of course, in that role, she attends many events. She helps host many events at our home and on campus. She's a cheerleader for our students and faculty and staff. She really takes that role seriously. In addition to that role, she also is executive director of the Legacy League, which is a scholarship foundation at Samford. So she and a wonderful team of professionals raise money for Samford's neediest students, and then surround those students with care and programming. And so that she spends a lot of her time doing that. And between those two roles, and of course, together raising a 15-year-old at home, our daughter Chloe, who's still at home, she stays very busy herself.
I can only imagine. And I know the students are probably getting to know you all super well with, like you said, hosting the different events.
We love to have students in the home. And honestly, being with students is our favorite part of the job by far.
How about Chloe? Does she blend in really well?
She does. Because she's grown up on a college campus, she has been essentially a college student for a long, long time.
That's
She's
right.
very mature. She loves hanging out with college age people. And so she's right at home, and she's fallen in love with Samford. As you know, she was born in Birmingham.
That's
And
right.
so
Right.
she's glad to finally be home. And she says that she's the only one in the family who can legitimately sing Sweet Home Alabama.
I
And
love it.
so she's embracing her Alabamian identity and having a great time.
All right. Great job, Chloe. We love that.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. And just to connect those dots, you were at Samford University in 2005 to 2010, if I'm remembering correctly,
that's
as the
right.
dean of the business school,
That's right.
and then moved to the presidency at Whitworth out in Washington,
That's right.
and then 11 years there, right? And then came back home to Samford, but then in the presidency last year, July 1st, 2021 was your
That's
official
right.
first day. So yeah, so Chloe got to be in that window.
She did. She did. She spent a lot of her growing up years in Spokane, but she's a native Birmingham citizen, and
Mhm.
glad, I think, to finally get her Alabama experience.
I like it. I like it. That's fantastic. Other two children are doing well.
They're
They're
doing great.
off
Thanks
in
for
other
asking. Our
states,
son
correct?
lives in Los
Mhm.
Angeles, is pursuing a recording career and doing well. Then our daughter just finished her first year of medical school at the University of Washington. So our two college grads are doing great, and just as excited as we all are that we're back in Birmingham.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, tell us what, if you do have downtime, I don't know that you do yet, maybe this next year, but what would that look like for the Taylor family?
Yeah, we enjoy doing fun family things. And, part of my role affords us the opportunity to travel.
Mhm, mhm.
And so when we get that opportunity, we usually take it. And we usually try to fit Chloe in somehow too, because
Nice.
it's almost always educational. And so we love to travel. We love just to spend time together playing games, relaxing, doing what most families get to do, reading for pleasure, which is a luxury right now, but reading for pleasure is always high on all three of our lists. And then eating good food. We're all three, we consider ourselves foodies, and so we love to explore the Birmingham restaurant scene and eat out as much as we possibly can. That's fun for us.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Well, Birmingham is definitely giving you lots of options now.
it did. I think we could eat at a different restaurant every night for several years and not repeat ourselves. It's amazing.
Good. And well, thinking back this past year at Sanford, what are some of your highlight moments that you would
Yeah,
select? You would
beyond just the being back,
Mhm.
beyond just the being back a part of the Sanford community, I look back at my relationships with students. Julie and I have gotten to forge some just really special bonds with our undergraduate and graduate students. As I said before, that's our favorite part of the work, is being near our students. So I just think back around some fun memories of traveling with students, doing admissions events with students, going to basketball games with students, going to the University of Florida when Samford played Florida back in the fall, and sitting in the student stands, and cheering along with our students. That was
Mhm.
fun. So just anything that puts us close to students is certainly a highlight. Our inauguration in the fall, we got to have a big ball and everybody dressed up, including the students, in black tie. And we just had a big party celebrating Samford and celebrating the inauguration. That was certainly a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Um, of course, Samford's probably best known and most beloved tradition is step sing. And we enjoyed step sing in January and February here, and just were in a amazement, stood in amazement at the talent of our students and the commitments that they make for that program. I would mention just a couple of more. Certainly, in May, we got to announce the largest philanthropic gift in the history of the university, and in fact, in the history of Alabama higher education. Marvin Mann generously bequeathed a $100 million gift, largely to fund scholarships here at Samford.
Mhm.
That was the highlight of any year, being able
Mhm.
to
Right.
announce that kind of generous gift. And then most recently announcing a really exciting $65 million capital project, the largest in Samford's history, to build a recreation and athletic complex on campus that will provide state-of-the-art wellness and recreation opportunities for our students, but also provide some much needed dedicated space for our Bulldog NCAA Division I programs. And so those are just a few of the highlights I would mention. I would be remiss, knowing my audience, Jennifer, if I didn't mention the opportunity to preach in a number of Alabama Baptist churches this past year, meeting with dozens of Baptist Association leaders and pastors throughout the state and the region, the opportunity to articulate my deep appreciation for and the university's love for our Alabama Baptist roots and our desire to continue to see those partnerships flourish. That was certainly a highlight of the year as well.
Lots of fun things happening.
I mean,
there.
that's just scratching the list too. I could go on and on.
Right. What's it like to blend the role you have in the president's seat with opportunities to speak in churches, with the various meetings you have around the country? How do you switch hats and work through all of that?
Yeah, well, I'm always representing Samford, of course. That's my job and my responsibility. But because Samford serves our church partners, because Samford serves other academic partners, and has a role in our community, my ability to move in and out of all of those circles is important for the university. And so the opportunity to preach the gospel in our churches, the opportunity to go to academic conferences and represent Samford, to do what I just did this weekend, to represent Samford on the board of a large charitable foundation as we gave money to scholars who are looking at research that embraces both faith and science. I mean, all of those things allow me to represent Samford in vital ways. And so it's really not hard for me to move in and out of all of those circles. And I find great joy in doing that too. It's one of the best parts of this job is that every day is a little bit different, and I get to get to wear a slightly different hat, if you will, as I represent Samford.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, and also I noticed several of the leadership vice president levels are retiring. Talk to us about how you're navigating some of the retirements and what happens next in that
That's
area.
right. Yeah. Well, I inherited such an amazing team of executive leaders here at Samford. Andy Westmoreland, my predecessor, what a great leader he was, but he also put together a wonderful team. Here's a remarkable thing. You mentioned that I left Samford now 12 years ago. When I returned last summer, I inherited an executive leadership team of people, all of whom I had worked with previously. And so that certainly contributed, I think, to my onboarding and all that we were able to get done this past year. But you're right. We lost a couple of that team to retirement. In fact, Wednesday this week will be the last day for Buck Brock in his role, Vice President of Business Affairs, Finance and Operations, and then the last day for Randy Pittman in his role as Vice President for University Advancement. And those two gentlemen have done such an incredible job of stewarding the Samford legacy and building a stronger Samford. There's just no question that Samford's in a better place because of Randy and Buck's leadership. But, change is a part of every organization, and they would tell you that as well. And so what a privilege and blessing I had to appoint two internal people to those roles going forward. Dr. Betsy Holloway, longtime Samford friend and partner and employee, will take over Randy's role as Vice President of University Advancement and Marketing. And then Dr. Colin Coyne, longtime employee at Samford, will take over Buck's role as Vice President for Finance, Business Operations, and Strategy. And I'm just excited about Betsy and Colin and what they bring to the table. Really excited to work with them going forward. Couple of other things, bringing Mark Newton, our athletic director, onto the leadership team as well. So he'll be sitting at the executive leadership table. And then also Jason Black, who again is a longtime employee of Samford, will be elevated to the role of Vice President for Enrollment Management. So all of those changes, along with the stability we have in that leadership group, I think portends a wonderful future for Samford, and I'm really excited about the team going forward.
Yeah, and the mentoring that has already
That's
played
right.
out is
Very
evident
few
there.
organizations could elevate that many people from
Right.
within.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot about Samford and our ability to cultivate leaders here at the university.
Right. Okay. Well, we talked about some of your highlights. Tell me about something maybe you weren't expecting, or maybe what's the opposite of highlight? Let me think.
Yeah, there really weren't too
Yeah.
many lowlights or whatever the opposite of
Yeah.
a highlight is. I think some of the challenges certainly, higher education continues to be buffeted by cultural and economic winds that require Samford to navigate them with wisdom and faithfulness. I like to remind all of our constituents that the cultural winds blow stiff. They blow hard on a campus like Samford's. And so Samford wants to be relevant. We want to educate and inform in a relevant and timely and contemporary way, and to do so in a way that also is faithful to our Christ-centered mission. And so combining that mission that lives at the intersection of faith and reason, that lives at the intersection of conviction and curiosity, that embraces everything it means to be a university, but also embraces everything it means to bring honor to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. That's not the easiest place always to be located, but it's a place, Jennifer, that we feel called to. It's a place that it's important for a place like Samford to be. And so while that may be a challenge at times and require a lot of wisdom, it's also a place that gives great energy to the university. It's something that animates, what we do on a regular basis. Keeping an education like Samford's affordable, throwing open the gates of the university to all who would benefit from a Samford education, that continues to be a challenge. But look, Marvin Mann just gave us $95 million, to throw directly towards student scholarships. So that came at just the right time, and we're very excited about that. And so, those aren't necessarily lowlights,
Right.
but they're just some of the attending pressures,
Yeah.
I think, that face higher education today, but pressures that I think Samford is uniquely positioned to address and to address effectively.
Well, as the audience outside of Samford might be, it may be alum, it may be just the community, it may be people that just love Samford from historical purposes. When there are moments that are difficult with the cultural winds, as you're talking about, how can those who are not inside the bubble of Samford best communicate and best ask questions when they're concerned, and how can they pray? Just what's a good relationship
Yeah.
communication style that you
Yeah.
would
What does that healthy
recommend?
relationship
Mhm,
look like?
mhm.
Well, the first thing I always ask people for when they sincerely ask, how can they help? How can they
Right.
support Samford? Is I ask for their faithful prayers. This is a community of prayer. We take prayer very seriously. This campus, its people are bathed in prayer every day, from faithful people all across the globe. And we covet those prayers. We just so appreciate the ways that people pray for this place, its people, and its mission. And that's certainly the first thing that I would ask. I think I would also humbly ask that people understand that we're a university. And as such, we're a place that intentionally brings together ideas and people who fundamentally might disagree with one another on important issues of the day. Jennifer, you and I both know that faithful, Jesus loving, Bible believing Christians disagree on a whole host of issues.
Very true.
And we shouldn't be afraid of that disagreement. We should be thankful that God has put us into community that allows us to discern together what wisdom is, what truth is, and how to live faithfully into our callings as Christians. And so while there may be some people who think that they've absolutely got all of that stuff figured out. Many of our 18 to 22-year-olds don't. And we want to expose our students to the world of ideas, and we want them to navigate with grace and truth the competing ideas in the world. That doesn't mean that we're losing our Christian moorings. It doesn't mean that we don't take the Bible seriously. We take all those things very, very seriously. But we want our students to hear what those opposing ideas are, so that when they graduate from Samford, they can be faithful, winsome Christians in the world.
Mhm.
And so that means that sometimes we might host conversations on campus that will make people feel uncomfortable, or it might cause them to think that Samford's gone off, the deep end.
Mhm.
I would just ask people to know that's not the case at all. This is a university filled with faithful people who are totally wed to this unique mission that we have to combine faith and ideas. And when we host programs or speakers or other things that bring alternative perspectives to the university, we're doing that not because we think that our students need to be persuaded by those ideas, or that we hold those ideas with some privilege, or we're privileging them in some way. It's really because we want to contribute to our students' critical thinking skills. We want them to listen to the best arguments for ideas outside of the prevailing Christian worldview, so that they can, as the Bible tells us, bring a ready defense for their faith in a world that frankly is questioning those ideas. And so we do that with care. We do that with great precision and humility. And so I would just ask people to trust the educational process and to trust what we're trying to do here at Samford. And if they have concerns, to not assume the worst, but to assume the best, and then to contact us with that same level of grace and express those concerns. And most of the time we can meet those concerns with knowledge and information that usually puts those people to ease. So that would be something that I would humbly request of our stakeholders, is to trust what we're doing here, and to know that all that we're doing here is really born out of a sense of faithfulness to the Christ-centered mission that we have at Samford.
And it sounds like a conversation would be helpful if there is a concern, rather than maybe making assumptions and posting a blog or going out on
I
social media.
mean,
Have the conversation first.
let's be countercultural here and actually get some information, right? Before we start, lambasting others on social media. I know none of your listeners do that, but this is the problem we have today, right? In the church and in the society at large, especially with social media, is that there's very little listening. There's very little fact gathering. There's very few attempts at really trying to understand the other and the perspectives of the other before we begin to make indictments and prosecute our cases, right? And I think just taking a breath, this is good for all of us to do, to take a breath, to ask questions like, what do I not understand? What do I not know about this situation? Filling that gap with charity and with good, rather than with malice and assuming the worst. And then when we're convicted to do so, when we feel like we've got all of the information at hand, then maybe it's responsible for us to opine, to talk about things in open forum. Certainly that's something we should do. I'm also reminded of a line from Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Life Together, when he reminds us that not every idea we have, not every perspective or opinion is one that's worthy of our, actually coming out of our mouths. And so just keeping some kind of discipline on that, and I'm speaking to myself here certainly as well, I think would be good advice for all of us.
Yeah, that I have seen more and more people stating similar comments and quotes about that we don't have to actually state everything that pops in our mind.
Yeah.
Definitely new. What about the student body? What are you seeing there as far as their learning to engage with culture and with each other, and in the midst of growing up in this kind of world?
Yeah, they want something so different, Jennifer. Students at Samford can easily diagnose some of the challenges that they're facing, that their communities are facing. And so they're quite eager to engage in conversations about how to make progress on things like having grace-filled conversations, embodying civil discourse, disagreeing well with others, and still being a winsome messenger of the gospel of Jesus Christ. They want to do all of those things. And we had some really good conversations this past year at Samford about civil discourse and the role of civil discourse among faithful communities. And our students led the way. I mean, they really did. They want to be different, right? They want their communities to be different. They don't always have all the answers, nor do we, but they're really eager to engage in conversations with one another about how they can treat one another, especially those with whom they disagree, with grace and charity, while also, of course, fighting for the truth as they see it. So I'm very encouraged by that.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's the student population right now at Samford?
Well, we're just under 5,800 students. That includes our graduate students as well. And, knock on wood or marble or whatever you got in front of you. And we're expecting a record or near record freshman class this fall. Students and families continue to choose Samford in record numbers. We're just so grateful for that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we set another enrollment record this fall.
All right. All right. Well, congratulations on your first year. And
thank you, Jennifer. That means a lot coming from you, by the way, because as maybe some of your listeners don't know, but you served faithfully on the search committee that brought me to Samford. And as such, Jennifer, you were among a selected few who translated the university, translated the Alabama Baptist community to me as a candidate. And I want to say you did a wonderful job doing that, because the more I listened to you and others on that committee, the more and more I felt like Samford would be an incredible place to be and to lead. So thank you for your role in that.
Well, it was an honor to serve. And we look forward to seeing what the next year brings. And
I do too.
And watching your vision be articulated out as you move forward. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.